I ran into my friend's mom at the library, and she asked, "Why do you always look at me like that?" He loved this time of day, peaceful, calm, and perfect for studying without the usual noise of the campus cafeteria or the chatter of his dorm. Today, he needed focus. Exams were approaching fast, and his mind had been restless all morning. Pushing open the heavy wooden doors of the library, Alex inhaled the familiar scent of old paper and polished wood. He loved it here. The library was not just a place for books, it was a sanctuary. Shelves towered on both sides, filled with stories, knowledge, and mysteries waiting to be discovered. He had spent countless afternoons wandering through aisles, sometimes searching for a specific book, sometimes just enjoying the quiet hum of human curiosity that seemed to linger in the air. Today, his goal was simple: find a quiet corner and study. He carried his backpack, carefully organized with notebooks, pens, and his laptop. He had a favorite spot on the second floor near the rare books section. Few people ever went there, which made it perfect. As he climbed the staircase, he noticed a familiar sound, the soft rustle of pages turning. He smiled to himself, thinking about how many people came to the library to escape, to learn, or to lose themselves in a story. When he reached the top, he froze. There, in the rare books section, stood Mrs. Carmichael. She was leaning slightly over a display case, examining an old, leather-bound manuscript. Her silver hair caught the sunlight streaming through the tall windows, and her expression was one of quiet fascination. Alex blinked, surprised. He had known Mrs. Carmichael for years. She was his best friend Ethan's mother, but he had never really talked to her alone. Most of his interactions had been at birthday parties, neighborhood barbecues, or school events. She was warm, kind, and always seemed to have a story ready to tell. Yet seeing her here so absorbed in the details of the manuscript made Alex pause. He didn't know if he should interrupt. "Alex," a gentle voice called from behind him. He turned, startled, and found Mrs. Carmichael looking directly at him, smiling. "Oh, I didn't see you there," he said quickly, tucking a loose strand of hair behind his ear. His face felt warm. "I just came to study." She tilted her head slightly, her eyes twinkling. "Why do you always look at me like that?" Alex froze. The question was simple, but it struck him like a sudden lightning bolt. His mind raced. How did he look at her? He was usually careful not to stare. He thought he had been respectful, but perhaps his fascination with knowledge had shown on his face more than he realized. I, I don't know," he stammered, unsure how to respond. His thoughts tumbled over each other like books falling from a shelf. Maybe I'm just thinking." Mrs. Carmichael laughed softly, a sound like wind chimes in the afternoon. "Thinking, huh? Or maybe admiring. You have an interesting look when you're thinking, Alex. It's different." Alex's ears burned. He wanted to sink into the floor. Yet there was something comforting about her tone, curious, teasing, but kind. It wasn't judgmental, which made him slightly bolder. "I guess I admire," he began, searching for the right words. "I admire people who know things. And you always seem to know things. Stories, facts, details. You make the world seem bigger." Mrs. Carmichael raised her eyebrows. "Is that so?" she said, leaning slightly closer to read the title on a nearby manuscript. "And what makes you think I know things?" Alex swallowed, trying to gather courage. "I don't know, it's just, when Ethan talks about his childhood adventures or family trips, you always make them sound alive. I guess I've noticed that and, well, I like it." For a moment, Mrs. Carmichael simply watched him. Then she smiled warmly. "You have a good heart, Alex. Most people never notice these things. They just rush by, busy with their own lives. You pay attention, that's rare." Alex felt a small smile creep across his face. He relaxed slightly. "I like noticing things," he admitted. "Sometimes I think the world is full of stories that nobody sees if they're not paying attention." "Exactly," she said, her eyes softening. "And books help us see them." She gestured to the manuscript. "Do you want to take a look?" Alex blinked. "Me?" Yes, you, she said with a playful wink. You seem like someone who appreciates a story. Come on, take a closer look. He stepped closer, careful not to touch the fragile pages. The manuscript was old, its leather cover cracked with age, and the illustrations were delicate, almost glowing with a strange vibrancy. He marveled at the colors and tiny details. Mrs. Carmichael noticed his amazement and leaned over his shoulder. This one is fascinating, she said. It's from the late 1600s. See the tiny stars in the margins. Each one represents an astronomical observation. People back then recorded everything meticulously. Every detail mattered. Alex's eyes widened. That's incredible, he whispered. They didn't have telescopes like we do now, but they still observed the sky so carefully, and they recorded it beautifully. Exactly, Mrs. Carmichael said, smiling. Humans have always had this urge to understand the world, to leave a mark, to make sense of the universe. Even in small ways. Alex nodded slowly, feeling a quiet admiration growing inside him. Not for Mrs. Carmichael herself, though he respected her deeply, but for the human spirit she represented. Curiosity, intelligence, careful observation, the desire to connect with the world. He realized that this was what had drawn him to Ethan's family stories all along, the sense that ordinary life could be extraordinary if you paid attention. They spent the next few minutes in companionable silence, turning the pages carefully and marveling at the small illustrations. Alex pointed out patterns he noticed. Mrs. Carmichael added historical context, and together they explored the world of the manuscript. You know, she said after a while, you remind me of Ethan when he was your age. He had this same quiet curiosity, always asking questions, always noticing things that others didn't. I see it in you, too. Alex felt a warmth spread through him. He had always felt a little out of place among his peers, who often seemed more interested in social media or video games than in stories, history, or the subtle beauty of the world around them. But here, in this quiet corner of the library, his curiosity was valued. He wasn't just a quiet kid. He was someone who saw, observed, and thought, and that mattered. I thank you, he said quietly, for noticing. Mrs. Carmichael smiled. It's easy to notice when someone cares enough to see. You do, Alex, you really do. Just then, a soft chime from the library entrance echoed through the high-ceilinged room. Other students were arriving, filling the quiet spaces with soft murmurs and footsteps. Alex realized he should probably find a spot to study before the library became too crowded. I should probably go find a desk, he said reluctantly. Of course, Mrs. Carmichael said, gently closing the manuscript. But remember, curiosity is a gift. Don't let anyone make you feel it's unimportant. Alex nodded, feeling a strange mix of humility and confidence. I won't, he promised. He left the rare books section and walked toward the main study area, his mind buzzing, not just with thoughts of exams or assignments, but with a renewed sense of admiration for the small, beautiful details in the world. And somehow, for the people who could notice them too. As he settled into a quiet corner with his laptop and notes, he found himself smiling. The unexpected encounter had shifted something inside him. Maybe it was the way Mrs. Carmichael had looked at him, not with judgment but with recognition. Maybe it was the shared excitement over the manuscript. Whatever it was, it made him feel connected to something bigger, the human desire to explore, to understand, and to appreciate. And for the first time in a while, Alex felt certain of one thing: paying attention to the world, and to the people who made it interesting, was never a mistake. The next morning, Alex found it hard to focus on anything besides the encounter in the library. Every time he tried to open his textbook, his mind wandered back to Mrs. Carmichael's question. Why do you always look at me like that? He knew it wasn't meant in a negative way, but it had caught him completely off guard. He had never thought much about how people saw him. Most of the time he kept to himself, studying, reading, or helping his friends with homework. But her question lingered, like a tiny spark that refused to die out. Why had he looked at her that way? It wasn't something he consciously did. Alex sighed and closed his notebook. Maybe it wasn't about her at all. Maybe it was about him, how he looked at people when he was curious, when he wanted to understand something. His friends often joked that he stared into space when he thought too hard. Perhaps Mrs. Carmichael had just seen him doing that and interpreted it as something more. By late afternoon, he had decided he needed another reason to go to the library. It wasn't just to study, it was to clear his head and maybe understand himself a little better. The sun was warm but gentle, and the sky was clear. Walking down the familiar streets, he noticed small details he usually ignored. A bird building a nest on a windowsill, the intricate patterns of frost melting on a car windshield, and a group of children laughing as they chased a ball. When he entered the library, it felt like stepping into another world. The smell of books, the quiet whispers, the soft shuffle of pages, everything seemed more alive than before. He made his way to the second floor, hesitating slightly as he neared the rare books section. And there she was, Mrs. Carmichael, standing by the same display case, examining a manuscript with careful attention. Her silver hair caught the light again, and her expression was focused, almost like she had forgotten the rest of the world existed. Alex swallowed nervously. He hadn't expected to see her again so soon. "Hello, Alex," she said without looking up. "Back so soon?" He nodded, trying to keep his voice steady. "Yes, I wanted to ask about the manuscript we saw yesterday." She finally looked at him and smiled. "Of course. You were very interested. I thought you might be." Alex felt a flush of relief. "I was, and I still am. I've been thinking about what you said yesterday, about noticing things, about paying attention. I think I understand a little more now." Mrs. Carmichael tilted her head. "Oh. And what do you understand?" "That it's not just about reading the words. It's about seeing the world, noticing patterns, understanding people and stories, and learning from them," he said slowly, trying to find the right words. "I think I looked at you like that because I was fascinated. Not in a weird way, but because you notice things and you tell stories in a way that makes the world seem bigger. I wanted to understand that." For a moment, she studied him quietly, then laughed softly. "You are an honest one, Alex. I can tell you're not saying that just to be polite. You really mean it." Alex nodded. "I do. I don't usually say these things, but I thought you should know." Mrs. Carmichael's eyes softened. "Thank you. That's very kind of you. You know, curiosity and admiration are not the same as jealousy or envy. I think that's what you've been feeling. You admire knowledge and insight, and that's a good thing." Alex felt a small smile spread across his face. It was comforting to hear someone describe what he was feeling, to put it into words that made sense. "I think I just want to learn as much as I can, and seeing how you notice things makes me want to notice them too." "You have the right attitude," she said. "The world is full of details, and only some people take the time to see them. You are one of those people. That's rare." They walked together to a nearby table, carefully placing the manuscript in the center. Alex felt a sense of nervous excitement. He had never had a conversation like this with an adult outside of school. Most adults either gave him quick answers or told him to focus on the assignment. But Mrs. Carmichael, she listened. She encouraged him to explore his thoughts, to notice things he might otherwise ignore. "So," she said, leaning slightly forward, "tell me what you noticed yesterday that most people would have missed." Alex thought for a moment. "The stars in the margins," he said, "and the way each one was carefully drawn, not just randomly placed, but each observation mattered. It's amazing to me that someone so long ago could notice so much without the tools we have now." "Yes," Mrs. Carmichael agreed. "And that's what I love about this manuscript. It's not just the observations, it's the dedication, the attention, the care. Every line, every stroke of ink, every note in the margin shows a human trying to understand the world. That's something that hasn't changed in hundreds of years. Humans have always wanted to understand, to connect, to learn." Alex nodded slowly, absorbing her words. I think that's what I like about noticing people too. Not just the things they do, but how they do them, how they think, how they see the world. It makes me feel like I understand them better. Mrs. Carmichael's eyes twinkled. Exactly. And that's why your look yesterday wasn't strange at all. You were seeing something most people don't, someone's mind in action. That's a rare gift, Alex. Pay attention to it, and it will take you far. Alex felt a wave of confidence wash over him. For once, he didn't feel awkward about his curiosity. Instead, he felt proud that he could notice, observe, and learn. He realized that his fascination with Mrs. Carmichael wasn't personal in the way he had feared. It was about the way humans can inspire each other through knowledge and insight. They spent the next hour carefully examining the manuscript together. Alex pointed out patterns in the illustrations, while Mrs. Carmichael explained the historical context. She asked questions that made him think deeply, and he found himself noticing details he had missed before. It was a kind of intellectual dance, a game of curiosity and discovery. At one point, Alex hesitated, then asked, "Do you ever wonder how many people looked at these pages before us and didn't notice anything?" Mrs. Carmichael smiled. "All the time, and that's why it's important to notice, to pay attention, to be curious. Humans are capable of great things, Alex, but only if they choose to see them." Alex nodded, feeling inspired. He realized that his own curiosity was a small but powerful part of the human story. Just like the astronomers who had drawn those stars centuries ago, just like the scribes who had carefully written the manuscript. He was part of a long tradition of humans seeking understanding, of noticing details others overlooked, and of connecting through shared knowledge. As the afternoon light began to fade, Mrs. Carmichael closed the manuscript carefully. "You have a rare mind, Alex. Don't ever let anyone make you feel it's strange or unnecessary. Curiosity is a gift. Learning from others, noticing things, asking questions, that's what humans do best." Alex felt a warmth in his chest. He had never felt so encouraged, so understood by an adult outside his family. Most adults treated him like a quiet observer. Mrs. Carmichael treated him like a thinker, a learner, and a human being with something to offer. "I thank you," he said quietly, "for showing me this, for noticing me." "You're welcome," she said softly. "And remember, Alex, admiration and curiosity are nothing to be embarrassed about. They are strengths. The way you look at the world, that's your superpower." Alex laughed quietly. "My superpower?" "Yes," she said, smiling. "Not everyone has it, but you do. Use it well." As he left the rare books section and made his way down the stairs, Alex felt different. Not in a dramatic way, not like he had changed overnight, but in a quiet, steady way. He felt more certain of himself, more connected to the world, and more aware of the power of curiosity. He understood, in a deep and personal way, that noticing, learning, and admiring were not weaknesses. They were what made humans extraordinary. And so, as he stepped out into the soft evening light, Alex carried with him a renewed sense of purpose. He would continue to notice, to learn, to admire, and to connect. Because in a world full of details, humans who choose to see and understand, like him, were the ones who truly mattered. The following weekend, Alex found himself standing outside the library once again. This time, it wasn't just curiosity that brought him, it was anticipation. He had been thinking all week about the conversation he had with Mrs. Carmichael. The way she spoke about noticing, learning, and connecting had stayed with him, like a gentle echo in his mind. Today, he wanted to learn more, not just about the manuscripts, but about the world of stories and knowledge she seemed to carry effortlessly. The library doors creaked softly as he pushed them open. Sunlight streamed through the tall windows, illuminating the polished wood floors and the towering shelves. The usual hum of pages turning and soft whispers filled the air. Alex felt a familiar warmth settle over him, the kind of quiet comfort that only the library could provide. As he climbed the stairs to the second floor, his heart skipped a beat. There she was, Mrs. Carmichael, standing beside a display table he hadn't noticed before. The table was covered with a variety of rare books, scrolls, and small artifacts. She looked up and smiled as soon as she saw him. "Alex," she said warmly, "I'm glad you're here. I thought you might like to see these." His eyes widened. "All of these, are they safe to look at?" She chuckled softly. "Yes, of course, but carefully. Some of these items are very old. You can touch the covers, read the pages, but be gentle." Alex nodded eagerly. He stepped closer to the table, his fingers hovering over the items as if they were treasures. Each book seemed to hold a secret, a story waiting to be discovered. The scrolls were delicate, their edges frayed with age, and the covers of the books were worn smooth by countless hands that had come before. "Today," Mrs. Carmichael said, "we're going to explore something special. I found these items in a small auction last month. They come from different parts of the world, different centuries, but they all share one thing: human curiosity." Alex's eyes sparkled. "Human curiosity." "Yes," she said. "Each of these items shows how humans have always wanted to understand, to explore, and to create. Even without modern tools, even without advanced technology, humans have always found ways to observe the world, record their experiences, and share knowledge." Alex picked up a small, leather-bound book. Its pages were yellowed, but the text was neat and precise. Tiny sketches filled the margins, plants, animals, and strange geometric patterns he had never seen before. "Look at this," Mrs. Carmichael said, leaning over his shoulder. "Notice how detailed these sketches are. The person who created this didn't just write down words. They were studying, observing, and documenting everything they saw. They wanted to understand." Alex traced the sketches with his finger, careful not to damage the pages. "It's amazing," he whispered. "They didn't have cameras or microscopes like we do. And yet they captured so much detail. They really saw the world." "Exactly," she said, smiling. "And that's the beauty of human curiosity. It doesn't need tools or machines. All it needs is attention, patience, and a desire to understand." They spent the next hour exploring the table together. Alex picked up scrolls with astronomical observations, maps drawn by explorers long gone, and journals filled with sketches of animals and plants from distant lands. Mrs. Carmichael explained the context of each item, telling stories of the people who had created them, the places they had traveled, and the discoveries they had made. Alex listened intently, asking questions and making observations. He noticed patterns in the sketches, small details in the handwriting, and connections between items that at first seemed unrelated. Mrs. Carmichael encouraged him, nodding and offering insights when he needed them. At one point, he picked up a small wooden box with intricate carvings. "What's this?" he asked. "That," she said, "is a puzzle box from Japan. People use these to store important notes or small treasures. The challenge was to open it without breaking it. It's a way to test patience, observation, and problem-solving, all human traits." Alex carefully examined the box, tracing the carvings with his fingers. After a few minutes of studying the mechanism, he managed to slide a hidden panel and open it. Inside was a small, folded piece of paper with a simple drawing of a tree and a note in neat handwriting. Mrs. Carmichael clapped softly. "Well done. You noticed the hidden panel and understood the mechanism." "That's exactly what I mean. Humans create, observe, and solve problems, and each generation learns from the ones before." Alex smiled, feeling a sense of accomplishment. It wasn't just the act of opening the box. It was the realization that human ingenuity, curiosity, and attention to detail connected people across time and space. They continued exploring, moving from one artifact to another. Alex noticed that each item told a story, not just about the person who created it, but about humanity as a whole. Humans had always sought to understand, to share, and to inspire. Even small, everyday observations, like the sketches in margins or the careful folding of a note, showed a desire to connect, to leave something behind for others to learn from. At one point, Mrs. Carmichael picked up an old map. It was faded, with tiny islands and coastlines marked in delicate ink. "This map," she said, "was drawn by a young explorer in the 1700s. He traveled across oceans, studied the stars, and documented what he saw. Many people never believed his findings, yet he recorded them anyway. Humans have always had the courage to explore, even when others doubt them." Alex leaned closer, examining the fine lines and tiny notations. "It's incredible," he said. Even without modern navigation tools, he managed to chart the world. "It's like humans can do anything if they pay attention and try hard enough." Mrs. Carmichael nodded. "Yes, and that's why curiosity and observation are so important. They're not just skills, they're part of what makes us human. The desire to understand, to explore, to notice, that's what sets humans apart." Alex felt a warm glow in his chest. He realized that his fascination with Mrs. Carmichael yesterday had not been about her personally. It had been about her mind, her curiosity, and the way she helped him see the world in a new way. It wasn't admiration in the usual sense. It was respect for the human spirit and the way people could inspire each other. "You know," Mrs. Carmichael said, "sometimes the smallest observations can lead to the greatest discoveries. People often overlook details, but those details matter. Humans have always known that." Alex nodded. "I think I understand that now. It's like noticing isn't just about seeing, it's about understanding. And understanding connects people, across time, across generations, across the world." "Exactly," she said, smiling. "And you, Alex, have a mind that notices, a heart that cares, and a curiosity that will take you far. Never underestimate that." They spent the rest of the afternoon exploring the remaining artifacts. Alex asked questions, made careful observations, and shared his thoughts. Mrs. Carmichael listened patiently, encouraging him and offering insights when needed. Together, they uncovered small details in the manuscripts, puzzles in the boxes, and hidden stories in the maps. As the light in the library began to fade, Alex realized he had learned more in this single afternoon than he had in weeks of solo study. It wasn't just the historical facts or the beautiful artifacts. It was the experience of sharing curiosity, discovery, and understanding with someone who valued it as much as he did. When they finally closed the last book and carefully returned the artifacts to their places, Mrs. Carmichael looked at Alex with a kind expression. "You did very well today. You noticed, you asked, and you understood. That's rare, Alex. Never stop being curious." Alex smiled. "Thank you. I feel like I learned more than I expected. Not just about the artifacts, but about people, and about myself." "That's the beauty of discovery," she said. "It's never just about the object or the book or the map. It's about the connection, the understanding, and the shared experience. Humans have always done this, and you're a part of it now." As Alex left the library that evening, he felt a quiet excitement. He understood something new about curiosity, learning, and the power of observation. He realized that humans, through noticing, recording, and sharing, had always left a trail of inspiration for the next generation. And now he felt like he was walking along that trail, ready to see, to learn, and to connect. For the first time in a long time, Alex felt truly a part of something bigger. Not because he had found a rare artifact or solved a puzzle, but because he had shared discovery with someone who understood and valued it as much as he did. The world was full of stories, details, and connections waiting to be noticed, and he was ready to notice them. The next week, Alex could hardly concentrate on his usual routine. Classes felt dull, and even his favorite park seemed less interesting than the library. His mind was filled with thoughts of the manuscripts, maps, and puzzles he had explored with Mrs. Carmichael. He kept replaying the moments when he had noticed tiny details, solved puzzles, or understood connections that others might overlook. It had awakened something inside him, a deep appreciation for curiosity, human ingenuity, and the joy of discovery. Finally, Friday arrived. Alex had decided to return to the library, hoping to continue his exploration and perhaps uncover even more about the artifacts and about himself. The sun hung low in the sky, casting long shadows across the streets as he walked. The air was crisp, and he breathed it in, feeling a quiet excitement building. When he entered the library, the familiar smell of old paper and polished wood greeted him like an old friend. He hurried to the second floor, scanning the rare book section. There she was, Mrs. Carmichael, standing beside a display case, carefully examining a small, bound journal. She looked up, her face lighting up as she saw him. "Alex, I thought you might come today," she said warmly. "I have something special to show you." His curiosity sparked immediately. "Special? What is it?" She held out a small notebook, its cover worn and slightly cracked. "This is a personal journal of an explorer from the 1800s. It contains his observations, sketches, and notes about the people, places, and discoveries he encountered during his travels. I think you'll find it fascinating." Alex took the notebook gently, feeling its weight in his hands. The pages were filled with intricate sketches of landscapes, tiny illustrations of wildlife, and careful notes in neat handwriting. As he flipped through it, he noticed something extraordinary. The journal wasn't just about observations. It was about understanding people, cultures, and the natural world. Each page revealed the explorer's curiosity, patience, and respect for the unknown. "Look at this, Mrs. Carmichael said, leaning over his shoulder. "Notice how he doesn't just describe what he sees. He tries to understand why things are the way they are. He observes, reflects, and records. That's what makes this journal so valuable." Alex nodded slowly. "It's amazing." He could have just written down facts or measurements, but instead he tried to understand everything deeply. He respected the people and the world around him. "Exactly," Mrs. Carmichael said. "Curiosity alone is not enough. Observation, understanding, and respect, those are what make humans extraordinary. Even centuries ago, people like him were leaving a trail of knowledge and insight for others to follow." Alex felt a sense of awe. He realized that what he had admired in Mrs. Carmichael yesterday, and again the day before, was the same quality he now saw in the explorer, a desire to notice, understand, and share. He had misunderstood his own feelings. It wasn't admiration for her as a person. It was admiration for the human spirit, for curiosity, and for the ability to inspire others. As he turned the pages carefully, he found a sketch of a village by a river. The explorer had drawn not just the buildings, but the people going about their daily lives. Children were playing, merchants were selling goods, and elders were sitting under trees talking. Small details were captured: the curve of a roof, the expressions on faces, the texture of the riverbank. "Look at this," Alex said softly. He notices everything, not just the big things, but the little things, the things most people would never see. "That's the beauty of observation," Mrs. Carmichael replied. "Humans have always been capable of seeing beyond the obvious. The world is full of details that tell stories, and those who notice them understand life in ways others cannot." Alex felt a surge of inspiration. He realized that his curiosity, his habit of noticing small things, and his desire to understand were not quirks or oddities. They were strengths. They connected him to the explorer, to Mrs. Carmichael, and to all the humans who had come before. For the first time, he saw himself as part of a long chain of observers, thinkers, and learners. "Mrs. Carmichael," he said hesitantly, "I think I understand now. When I looked at you, it wasn't just you. It was, it was the way humans can inspire each other through knowledge, observation, and curiosity. I admired that, and I didn't realize it." She smiled warmly. "Alex, that is a profound realization. You've learned one of the most important lessons humans can teach each other. the value of curiosity, respect, and understanding. You've realized that admiration for someone's mind and character is a form of connection, a human connection that transcends age, status, or background. Alex felt a quiet pride. He had always been shy, careful not to stand out, and unsure of how others perceived him. But now he understood that his way of noticing, observing, and thinking deeply was not something to hide. It was something to embrace. It was a gift, a strength, and a pathway to connect with others. Mrs. Carmichael handed him another page from the journal. "See this," she said. The explorer wrote about a small plant he discovered. Most people would have ignored it, but he took the time to study it, draw it, and understand its place in the ecosystem. Humans have always been curious about the small details, the things that others overlook. That curiosity leads to knowledge, innovation, and understanding. Alex examined the drawing carefully. He could see the veins in the leaves, the texture of the petals, and even tiny insects resting on the stems. "It's incredible," he whispered. He didn't just observe. He tried to understand the relationships between everything. People, plants, animals, the world is all connected. "Yes," Mrs. Carmichael said softly, "and that's what makes humans extraordinary. Our ability to notice, understand, and connect is what allows us to grow, learn, and create. That explorer's curiosity was the same as yours, just expressed differently. You are part of that tradition now, Alex." Alex felt a deep sense of belonging. He realized that he was not just an observer of the world, but an active participant in the long human story of discovery and understanding. Every detail he noticed, every question he asked, every connection he made was part of something larger, a chain of curiosity and knowledge that stretched across centuries. He looked up at Mrs. Carmichael, his eyes shining with newfound clarity. "I think I understand now why you asked me yesterday why I always look at you like that. It wasn't personal and it wasn't strange. It was me noticing, admiring, and trying to understand. That's human. That's something I should be proud of." She nodded, her smile gentle and approving. "Exactly, Alex. Curiosity and admiration are part of what makes us human. Never be afraid to notice, to ask, or to appreciate. That's how humans grow, learn, and connect with each other." They spent the next hour exploring more pages of the journal, discussing the explorer's observations and the lessons hidden within. Alex noticed patterns in the sketches, connections between different entries, and subtle insights about human nature. Mrs. Carmichael encouraged him to think critically, ask questions, and express his ideas freely. By the time the sun began to set, the library was bathed in a warm, golden glow. Alex felt a sense of peace and accomplishment. He had not only learned about the explorer's travels and discoveries, but also about himself, human curiosity, and the power of observation. As he closed the journal carefully and handed it back, Mrs. Carmichael said, "You've done very well today, Alex. You've seen, understood, and appreciated. That is the essence of what it means to be human." Alex smiled, feeling a quiet confidence he had never experienced before. "Thank you," he said, "for everything. I feel like I'm starting to see the world differently." "You are," she said softly, "and that's just the beginning. Keep noticing, keep learning, and keep connecting. Humans have always done this, and now you're part of that tradition. Remember that." As Alex left the library and stepped into the cool evening air, he felt a deep sense of purpose. He understood now that curiosity, observation, and admiration were not just traits, they were human superpowers. They connected people across time and space, inspired discoveries, and created bonds that transcended generations. And for the first time, Alex realized that he didn't need to hide or worry about his curiosity. It was something to celebrate, something that could guide him through life, and something that made him truly human. The next morning, Alex woke up with a quiet excitement. Today was not like any other day. He felt lighter, as if the weight of uncertainty and self-doubt had lifted overnight. The conversations with Mrs. Carmichael, the manuscripts, the journals, the puzzle boxes, they had all opened a new way of seeing the world. And today he wanted to continue exploring that world, to notice even more and to share his discoveries. Walking to the library, Alex felt a sense of anticipation. The streets were calm, and the sunlight danced across the pavement. He noticed details he had never paid attention to before: the pattern of cracks in the sidewalk, the way the leaves of a tree shimmered in the wind, the faint sound of birdsong hidden among the urban noise. Each detail felt significant, as if the world itself was waiting for him to see it. As he entered the library, the familiar smell of old books greeted him like a warm embrace. He hurried to the second floor, eager to find Mrs. Carmichael. She was there already arranging some manuscripts and scrolls on a table. She looked up and smiled as soon as she saw him. "Good morning, Alex," she said warmly. "I'm glad you're here. I have something for you today, a small project. Are you ready?" Alex's eyes lit up. "Yes, I'm ready." Mrs. Carmichael handed him a notebook and a pencil. "I want you to explore a section of the library, find something that interests you and record your observations. Sketch, write, note patterns, whatever you feel is important. Then we'll discuss what you discovered." Alex accepted the notebook eagerly, feeling a thrill of excitement. It was his first independent project of this kind, and he felt a sense of trust that made him proud. He wandered through the aisles, carefully scanning the shelves, running his fingers along the spines of books, and noticing tiny details that most people overlooked. After a few minutes, he stopped in front of a shelf labeled Natural History. His eyes fell on an old, thick book with faded lettering on the spine. Pulling it down gently, he opened it to a page filled with illustrations of birds he had never seen before. Each bird was drawn with meticulous detail: feathers, beaks, claws, and eyes carefully depicted. There were notes about behavior, habitat, and even subtle patterns in the plumage. Alex's fingers hovered over the page, hesitant to touch too much. Then slowly he began to sketch the birds in his notebook, adding his own notes about colors, shapes, and imagined sounds. He observed the patterns in their wings, the way their beaks curved, and the tiny claws grasping branches. He noticed details that the original artist had included, but also details that only his careful observation revealed. After a while, Mrs. Carmichael approached and leaned over his shoulder. "I see you've chosen a fascinating subject," she said. "What have you noticed?" Alex looked up, eyes shining. "I noticed that each bird is unique, but they all share certain patterns. Their wings, feathers, and claws are different, yet they follow similar shapes and structures. And even though the artist drew them centuries ago, they feel alive. I think humans have always wanted to capture life, to understand it, and to share it with others." Mrs. Carmichael nodded approvingly. "Exactly. Observation is more than seeing. It's understanding, connecting, and preserving knowledge. Humans have been doing this for centuries. You are continuing that tradition today." Encouraged, Alex continued his sketches and notes, adding observations about the birds' postures, the angles of their wings, and the small markings that distinguished one from another. He realized that his attention to detail wasn't just about drawing. It was about understanding the natural world, noticing patterns, and learning how living things were connected. After an hour, Alex set the notebook down and turned to Mrs. Carmichael. "I think I understand something new," he said softly. "It's not just about observing, it's about connecting. The birds, the manuscripts, the journals, they're all part of a bigger story. Humans observe, record, and share, and that creates connections across time and space." She smiled warmly. "Yes, Alex, that is the heart of human curiosity. We notice, we understand, and we pass on knowledge. That is how humans grow, learn, and inspire. You are doing exactly what generations before you have done." Alex felt a deep sense of fulfillment. He realized that he was not alone in his curiosity. He was part of a long chain of humans who had observed, learned, and shared. And in that moment, he understood why Mrs. Carmichael's question from weeks ago had mattered so much. Why do you always look at me like that? It wasn't about her. It was about human connection, curiosity, and admiration for knowledge and insight. Mrs. Carmichael, Alex said, thank you for showing me this, for helping me see that noticing and understanding are not just hobbies, they're part of what makes humans special. They connect us, inspire us, and help us grow. She placed a gentle hand on his shoulder. You're welcome, Alex. And remember, the more you notice, the more you learn, the more you connect. That is the beauty of being human. Never stop exploring, observing, or asking questions. Alex glanced around the library, seeing it in a new light. The shelves, the books, the manuscripts, even the quiet whispers of other students, all were part of a living network of human curiosity. Each person here, past and present, had added their own observations, ideas, and discoveries, and he was now part of that network. Feeling inspired, Alex walked to a window overlooking the town. The sun was beginning to set, casting warm golden light across the streets. He noticed small details everywhere: the shadows of leaves on the pavement, a bird perched on a rooftop, the faint shimmer of a passing car. Each detail seemed connected to the larger world, and he understood that his observations were part of that connection. Mrs. Carmichael joined him at the window. "Do you see?" she asked softly. "Everything is connected. The details, the people, the stories. Humans have always noticed, always recorded, and always shared. That is what makes us extraordinary." Alex nodded, feeling a quiet pride. "I see it now, and I want to be part of it. I want to notice, understand, and share too. That's what humans do, and that's what I can do." They stood together in silence for a few moments, appreciating the beauty of the town bathed in the sunset. The quiet hum of the library, the distant sounds of life outside, and the warmth of human connection all came together in a perfect harmony. Finally, Alex turned back to the rare books and manuscripts. "I think I'm ready to explore more," he said. "To notice more, understand more, and share what I learn. This is just the beginning." Mrs. Carmichael smiled, a look of pride in her eyes. "Exactly, Alex. The world is full of details, stories, and connections waiting to be noticed. And now, you have the tools, the curiosity, and the confidence to discover them. Humans have always done this, and you are continuing the tradition." As the library's closing bell chimed softly, Alex carefully returned the notebook to his bag and began to gather his things. He felt a quiet confidence and a sense of belonging. He wasn't just a student walking home after a day of study. He was part of a long human story of curiosity, observation, and connection. Walking out of the library into the cool evening air, he breathed deeply, feeling alive and inspired. The streets, the buildings, the people passing by, all were part of a living story. Every detail mattered. Every observation, every question, every note he recorded was a link in the chain of human knowledge. As he waved goodbye to Mrs. Carmichael, she smiled knowingly. "Keep noticing, Alex, keep learning. And remember, humans are capable of extraordinary things when they pay attention, understand, and connect." Alex nodded, feeling the truth of her words deep in his heart. "I will," he said. "I promise." As he walked home, he noticed the small wonders of the world around him. A flower growing through a crack in the sidewalk, a child laughing as they chased a butterfly, the way the sunlight reflected off a puddle. Everything seemed connected, alive, and full of meaning. And Alex knew for the first time that his curiosity, observation, and admiration were not quirks or oddities. They were his strengths. They were what made him human. They were what connected him to the past, the present, and the future. The world was full of stories, waiting to be noticed, understood, and shared. And Alex was ready to see them all.